Coming up on episode 75 of Creative Writing, I'm talking about why you don't need a blog. And also, you'll be hearing from our sponsor, golance.com.
I can't go back to sleep, it's almost light. These restless thoughts have kept me up again tonight.
Hello and welcome to Creative Writing, the podcast for writers, bloggers, and creatives who want to build an online platform without being or feeling or anything smarmy. I'm your host, Kirsten Oliphant, and I'm so glad to be here. Funny but true story. You're listening to this podcast and I'm having a baby. Not at the moment of recording, but as it's going up, it is actually the day that I am scheduled to have a C-section, and I will be in the hospital welcoming a new baby. So stay tuned next week. Maybe we'll hear about that, or you can head over to, I don't know if I'm going to post it on the blog. I'm trying to think where you'll hear about this. If you're subscribed to my email list, you're going to hear about this baby. If you are in my Facebook group, you will hear about the baby. So you can head over to creativewriting.com/subscribe to get on my email list. Although if you do it now, I'll probably send it in a couple days. Either way, obviously I have not planned out how this baby announcement is going to you guys. The best place is probably the free Facebook community, which you can find at creativewriting.com/community, where we have great discussions, questions. We share big and small wins and more. So you can hear all about this, see pictures. We don't know if we're having a boy or a girl. So, it's kind of like a big, exciting thing, maybe. I don't know how you feel about babies, but in any case, that's what I'm doing today. So this is a little weird, recording this knowing you're listening and I'm having a baby. So episode 75, I'm going to talk about why you don't need a blog. And before I dive into that, I want to tell you a little bit about our sponsor for the month, which is golance.com. Now, I am really excited that Golance is a sponsor because, one, I have a sponsor. That's so cool. But also, this sponsor is totally a great fit for you guys, because whether you are trying to hire out somebody to help you with things like ebook formatting, which is a big question that we get in the group very often, because if you want to put it on Kindle, it has to look different than if you want to put it on Kobo. You can find freelancers to do the work for you. It's free to join. You can also put your own work up there. I know a lot of you guys are doing side hustles. You are helping people do graphic design. You are helping people build websites. You are doing copywriting and proofreading. Golance.com is a place where you can list your services for free, and it's global. So you can find people to hire and be hired from all over the world, which is fantastic. And my favorite part is you are not going to have to hustle after people yourself to get paid, because Golance is going to take care of that for you. Can I get an amen? So head over and give some love to our sponsor. Sign up for your account and hey, get some work done. Find some people to work for you. Save yourself some time. Hire out that work you don't need to worry about doing. That's golance.com. So now I want to talk about why you don't need a blog, which is kind of a funny thing because, hey, didn't I say this podcast is for bloggers? I did. So what in the world? Let's talk about this. This comes actually from a conversation and a question in the paid creative community membership, where someone was asking about being a speaker, that the end goal was to be a speaker, but she knew she needed to, have some expertise. So she had a blog and was writing a book and didn't know about social media. And then it was just kind of like this big snowball of overwhelm. And I know probably many of you guys have felt that same snowball of overwhelm. I think that's like the new term I'm going to coin for this. When you want to grow your audience, you want to do a certain thing, and you feel like you have to have a blog. You have to be on Instagram, you have to be on Twitter, you have to be on Facebook and Pinterest and all these other places. Or do you? And you kind of maybe don't, but you also don't know where to start. And then if you want to write a book, you've got to spend the time to write a book, but then you got to promote a book and learn how to edit and format the book. Hire out at golance.com. But you have all these steps and these things, and it can seem sometimes like instead of having a linear path, you are going in circles, or to go back to the snowball, you are rolling down a hill, except you're not really rolling in the direction you want to, and you're picking up all this stuff and you're just getting buried in this big snowball of stuff. And then you land at the bottom and you're just in a pile of overwhelm. So what in the world do you do? So that's the kind of the question that I was answering in the video. And it got me thinking about the whole idea of blogging, because in last week's episode, in episode 74, I talked with Jane Friedman, and she talked about not needing an author blog, which I think was really freeing to some of you guys who messaged about it or talked about it in the Facebook group. And I know can be really freeing to people who don't want to write a blog. And so what gives? So here's the thing that I want to talk about. And it's not just going to cover blogging, but it's going to specifically go into blogging. Before you think you have to start a blog, you really need to go back and think about your end goal. And I know I keep hammering this idea of why into you guys, but the reality is if you really get this clear, everything else is easier. Trust me on this. And if you want some help on that, you can go to the foundation series and take the first module for free at courses.createifwriting.com. And you can just look up in the tab and see the foundation series. The whole idea of why and is really, it's kind of twofold. So what is your end goal? And you may think your end goal is to be a blogger. And some of you who are listening, and if you are a blogger and that's your end goal is to make money being a blogger, then don't stop listening, okay? Because I think this will have some relevance for you. But this is specifically, especially for the people who are, that's not their end goal, I guess, is to be a blogger. But think about your end goal. And maybe that end goal is going to have kind of two parts, because maybe you want to be a blogger, or maybe you want to be a writer, or maybe you want to be a speaker. Okay, so that's part of the goal, is what you kind of want to do. And then the other kind of thing to think about when thinking about your why, what do you want to get out of it? Like, okay, you want to be a writer, but do you want to have a full-time income? Do you want to have a part-time income? Do you want to just enjoy it? Is it a hobby? You need to think about sort of the benefits also when you're thinking about the why. It's not just like, I want to be able to say I'm a writer and I have a book on Amazon. Okay, but do you want to be able to say you have a book on Amazon that actually sold a lot of copies or continues to sell copies or brings in money to help pay for your kid's school or for, that other cool hobby you have that's expensive? You need to think about what it is that you actually want to do in terms of kind of your why, and then the benefit that's coming from this. So let's think about blogging in this big picture. So a blog is really a vehicle that can help you to reach those goals. And again, maybe the end goal is, I want to be a blogger. I want to say I am a blogger. And I think that does apply to some of you, but I feel like more and more as our sort of the internet world shifts and changes, which it does all the time, the idea of blogging has really changed. Back in the day, it started as an online journal. It was a web log, a diary of sorts, and it has really transformed to where most blogs nowadays, I feel like when people say they're a blogger, most of the time what they mean is they have sort of a really professional looking website. They're trying to make money. They may have ads. They may do sponsored posts. It's more of a job. It's way more professional than, 7 years ago, if you said you're a blogger, people are like, oh, that's cute. You write about your family or your life or whatever it is. It was really a different thing. And it's gone through many iterations, and I know it will continue to keep changing. I don't think blogging is dying. I think it's just changing always. And so more than ever, I think blogging now, it doesn't have to be this thing that you have to do if you're not trying to be a blogger as your end goal. So, maybe somewhere in the middle of the short, brief, but crazy history of blogging, people may have said you have to start a blog. And I know that that was advice that was given. And I would say today that you don't. You do not have to start a blog. I'll say it again. You do not have to start a blog, okay? And if you're already writing a blog, you don't have to keep your blog, or you don't have to keep your blog up. So let me explain why. A blog is a vehicle, right? Okay, so your blog, and again, unless it's your end goal, a blog is a vehicle to help you get to those goals, the goals that you have of being whatever it is that you want to be and getting that benefit from it. But here's the thing about a blog today, okay? It used to be that if you wrote it, people would come. And that's how it was when I started blogging in 2007. I had readers. I had no idea who they were, where they came from. Social media was not a thing people did, or they did it, but they didn't promote their blogs on it. So the people that found me, I don't know where the heck they found me. I wasn't promoting it. I would just write posts and people would come read them. That's how it worked. And it does not work that way anymore. As you may know, if you've hit your head against the wall trying to build up traffic for your blog, that's not how it works. These days, blogging works like this. You write a blog post and then you spend forever promoting it, and people may read it or they may not. It's crazy. So what that also means is that you have to have some kind of social media presence, either on Pinterest or on Twitter or on Facebook or Instagram, somewhere else that's actually driving the traffic to your blog. Or maybe you're really good at SEO, which I think most people aren't. Okay. And maybe you're one of the lucky ones who is. Next week, we're going to hear from Melissa Griffin, who actually is phenomenal at SEO. So she's going to talk a little bit about that. But otherwise, you write the blog post and that's only the first step. And probably the harder work is trying to get people to read it. That is if you want them to read it. Otherwise, you could just write a blog post. No one will read it, but you'll have a blog post. So if your blog is the vehicle by which you want to accomplish something else, is it the best vehicle? This is the question you need to ask yourself, because if you're going to commit to blogging and you want it to be a vehicle, then you need to have eyes on it. And if you want to have eyes on it, then you have to have places you are promoting it. So here's when you get that whole snowball thing and where that question, and I could tell that Heather was really kind of freaking out, because it starts to feel really overwhelming, because if you want to be a writer and then people say you need a blog, well, to get blog readers, then you have to go do social media. Meanwhile, when are you supposed to write your book? Okay, if you're busy blogging and trying to promote things that are on your blog so that people will come actually read your book, is that the best investment of your time? And that's really what it comes down to. And I want you to think about that when it comes to blogging. Is a blog the best vehicle to get you to that end goal of what you want to be and what you want to get out of it? Because blogging really, if you want to get a ton of traffic, if you want to grow an audience strictly through a blog, then it's going to be hard work. It's going to be kind of a full-time job. And I know a lot of people who say they do it on a part-time time, but if you're going to do that, you have to be really smart about it, which also means you probably need to get some training, which means maybe taking a course or really diving into, training for social media so that you can actually promote your blog, because really the blog traffic comes from social media. So it's a lot. You are committing to a lot of work, and is it worth it? In this crowded space of blogs today, I'm not sure that it is. If your end goal is not to be a blogger, if it's to be something else, yes, a blog can be a vehicle, but should it be your primary vehicle? I'm not saying you shouldn't necessarily have one. I think it's nice if there is one, but is that where you need to put all of your time, is to build this blog so that you'll find readers or speaking gigs or other things, or build your expertise in your field? I don't think it is necessarily the best vehicle. So what is? Here are some alternatives for you. So we've talked about social media. Obviously, you need social media if you want to connect readers for your blog. But social media is definitely a place where you need to be. Period. Full stop. You have to be somewhat active somewhere on social media. It does not mean you have to be everywhere. An alternative to a blog might be picking one platform and really rocking it. When I went to the Blog Elevated conference in September, I guess it was October. I don't know what month it is. I went to Blog Elevated this year. It was amazing. Find out more at blogelevated.com. I got to sit in on an Instagram panel of 4 women who are power Instagram users. And actually, I think at least 2 of the 4 did not have a blog before Instagram. They started on Instagram. Instagram was their thing, and their blog is not their main thing. They get paid a lot of money to post photos, sponsored photos on Instagram. That's not all they post, but their main thing is Instagram. And they have a blog that kind of supports Instagram, but it doesn't bring in the same money and it doesn't have the same viewership that Instagram does. So you can actually pick another platform and really rock that platform, and that be the vehicle to reach whatever goal you have. Okay. So, and if you're going to do this, it doesn't have to be, maybe you could do a couple. It doesn't have to be Instagram. There are pros and cons to all of them. I'll leave a link to the guide that I made, the Seriously Simple Social guide that I made to kind of figuring out the different social media platforms. So if you're trying to choose, then you can kind of look through that and figure it out. And you may just have to do trial and error, but you don't have to have the blog be the main vehicle. And it might be easier for you, rather than both writing a blog and trying to also build a social media presence, which sends traffic to your blog, just using that social media presence. Now, the caveat to this is you have to have a website, okay? You need to have a static home where people can connect with you, but that doesn't have to be a blog. You want to have a static website at the least so that people can find out information about you. It needs to have a homepage, which I would say is a static page. And what that means is it's not changing every time you update like a blog post. The homepage doesn't change. Your homepage is a static page. Again, this is if your end goal is not to be a blogger in and of itself. Okay, because if you want to be a blogger in and of itself, your blog should be your homepage, right? Now, if you're trying to be a blogger who uses that, again, especially if you already have traffic, like I've already had traffic, I have kind of a platform there. So this doesn't always apply to me, but it has meant that I put the blog more on the back burner because it's not bringing in other things are bringing. So let me just keep talking. I kind of circled back there. If you are a blogger and that's your end goal, have your blog on the main page. If not, you need a static site. People need to be able to find you. They need to be able to find all of your social media presence places and links to that. They need to be able to find out how they can contact you. So if they want to hire you as a speaker, if they want to buy your books or other things, they can do that. You should also have a very prominent email sign up form on your main page because, hey, can you believe I've talked for 15 some minutes? I've not talked about email yet. Yes, no matter what you're doing, you should have an email list. I feel like that's the foundation. It should always be kind of underneath everything, okay? But that doesn't mean you can't choose something like Instagram and plan to rock out Instagram, come up with a strategy, make that your number one goal. But you need to have a website. You need to have somewhere that people can find you, the central hub for where your stuff lives, okay? So one of the alternatives to a blog, then again, just to reiterate, is somewhere else on social. You can also use other people's platforms, okay? And I've had a whole episode about this, and at the moment I can't think of the number. Should have had it with me, but I don't. Where I talked about how to leverage other people's platforms and connect with other people in a way that's not smarmy. So you can ask for guest posts on blogs that are actually going to bring you traffic. And there are some kind of ways I talk about how to figure that out because sometimes those guest posts are just a waste of time. You need something that's actually going to bring people back to your site or connect you with people. You could also do posts on places like Medium, where you can actually just post your blog post and you can actually post something on your blog and then post on Medium too if you want to repurpose content. Totally okay. Google's not going to ding you, okay, for having duplicate content. You can totally use something like Medium, which is a place where people just come and read. And so if you start to build a following on Medium and are able to connect Medium to your main hub, which is your site, and get people on your email list, you can connect that way and really build an audience. Maybe you want to post for the Huffington Post. You could become a contributor there, have a column there. There are so many places that you could guest post and get out there in front of other people much faster than you can build that same traffic on your own blog. So that is another way that you can kind of go around, build a platform, but not have to spend the time on your own blog doing the work that it takes to really do a blog well. The other thing is you could just do other kinds of mediums. Maybe you're going to do video, and YouTube is kind of a social media, but video is its own kind of beast in and of itself. Maybe you're better at video. One of the creative community members, Matt Brady, was talking about how maybe he doesn't like writing as much. He's better at audio. Maybe he should just do a podcast. And I said, yes, Matt, do a podcast, because there's no point necessarily in spending the time it's going to take to do a blog well if you'd rather do another medium. Do that other medium well, because the same kind of chicken and egg snowball problem happens if you are like, okay, well, I got to start a blog first. Then I have to have a podcast, and then I have to get traffic to the blog, and then I have to get podcast listeners, because I have a lot of podcast listeners who probably never go to my blog. Raise your hand if you don't ever go to my blog. If you ever don't go to creativewriting.com, maybe you don't. And I also have a ton of people who are on my email list in my Facebook group and chat with me and don't actually listen to this podcast. So they're not even hearing me talk about them right now. And they're just not podcast listeners. And so I have built two different audiences in some ways. They're connecting with me through the different mediums, but that's double the work. And I want to do that, and that's okay with me because I was a blogger before as well. And I'm a big writer, so I'm fine with this choice I've made. But for you, especially if you're just starting out and you're overwhelmed, later on you can add pieces in. And what I told Matt is, hey, yes, you should have show notes. You should have something on a site, but it doesn't have to be long and involved. My show notes are pretty long and involved because I also know how to drive traffic from Pinterest. Pinterest users don't want to show up to show notes for a podcast that are just like bullet points and nothing else. Okay, they want a real meaty post. And so that's kind of my goal. But if that's not your goal and you're trying to connect to people on the podcast platform, you can have a site that has some show notes that are just kind of bullet points, maybe a transcription that you pay for. But either way, you don't have to do it all, okay? You can pick a medium, you can pick a platform, you could pick guest posting and being other places in ways that start to bring you an audience that don't have to come from a blog. Does this make sense? Are you guys feeling kind of relieved? Are you feeling frustrated? I really hope that this is helpful information to you, because my goal is for you not to be overwhelmed and not to be stuck in the snowball of the things that you have to do, but wait, you have to do something before that, but wait, you have to do something before that. The ultimate goal is this. You need to think about your why. Are you doing this to become what? Are you doing this to get what benefit? And then you need to work backwards and think about, okay, where are my time investments Where can I make investments with my time that are going to bring me the most return? That probably is not a blog. I would honestly say if you have not started a blog, I'm not saying don't have one, but I would definitely say that should not be the priority because it's really hard to build up blog traffic. I would absolutely recommend thinking about other options, thinking about the guest posting, thinking about posting other places, thinking about picking a social media platform and really rocking that platform out, because it's much easier to find followers and to find friends and to find fans on those other social platforms than it is to get people to your blog. I was actually just listening to or reading, I guess, comments in a Facebook group where somebody was like, I just started my blog and I'm so frustrated. No one comments. And there was a whole string of people responding on Facebook. And I responded as well. And basically my response, which echoed a lot of people's, was people don't leave comments on blogs anymore. Very rarely do people leave comments on blogs. They leave comments when you post the link to your blog on social media. Like if I share a link to my blog post on Facebook, I get comments, I get likes, I get shares. But they don't go and read my blog, or they do read it, I guess. I hope they read it, but they don't comment on the blog itself. That's not how people work anymore. So you are probably going to have a much easier time building the platform you want, connecting to your readers through something else. So again, here are kind of the important points. Think about your why, the ultimate goals, work backwards for what might get you the best return for the investment of your time. You should have a site. You need a website. It does not have to be super fancy. It can be a static page. Hey, if you're just starting out, you can have a landing page that collects email addresses, okay? Use something like Lead Pages. ConvertKit has landing pages as well. They're a little more basic, but you could set up a landing page and just collect email addresses and talk about what you're doing. That's the very basic, but you should have a site. You should be collecting email. That's just a great thing that should go underneath everything as a foundation. You should always be collecting emails, but you do not have to write a blog. Is this freeing to you? Is this helpful? I hope that it is. So these are kind of my thoughts on kind of your goals and why you might or might not want to have a blog. Now, next week, I'm interviewing Melissa Griffin. I've already actually had the interview with her, but I'll be putting that up. And we're talking about blogging, but what to do with the traffic when you get it, also SEO. So I'm going to have a podcast episode about why you shouldn't have a blog. And then next week, we're going to talk about blogging. So keep that in mind. Maybe you need to hear both to kind of get a sense of where you should spend your time. And maybe the time you want to spend is on your blog. Maybe it is. And I don't want to dissuade you if that's where you're at. This is really kind of a message for the people who feel like they have to start a blog and they have to do social media and they have to put out a book and they have to do all these things. And then they don't do anything because it's too overwhelming, or they do too many things and they don't do one well. Slow down, think of your goals, pick something and really invest and do it well. So I leave you with that and hope that it's really encouraging to you. So again, I hope that you guys will connect other places with me on my email. You could find me at creativewriting.com/subscribe. And you can connect and see the baby pictures of the baby that I am having at this moment or have already had since it's early morning when I'm going to be having the surgery. creativewriting.com/community. And I will be a little bit, I don't know that I'm taking off from the podcast, trying to record ahead of time, but I may be a little bit quieter in the coming weeks or months. We'll see. Definitely kicking things back off in January, but November, December may be a little quieter for me. If you want to read these show notes and get some helpful links, and I'll post to some other articles, you can find the show notes at creativewriting.com/075. A big thank you to Jasmine Commerce of JasmineCommerceMusic.com for the lovely music for the show. Please go visit her. Please go. If you're loving this music as much as I am every week when I get to set up the show and listen to it, then go grab an album. She's an independent artist and she's amazing. And thank you also to my sponsor for this month, GoLance.com. Stop wasting your time. Go hire somebody or make some money as a freelancer signing up for free at GoLance.com. Thank you guys for listening and for all your support, and I hope you have an inspired week.